Excellent. Good afternoon, good evening, and wherever you are in this beautiful wide world that we're in, you're now listening to Jason Cooper. I'm your host from serenityradio.co.uk, and my show is all about positive people. I always like to elaborate it's positive people with positive minds that can actually add value back into your life and your lives. And I have a really wonderful guest today. Lisa, how do you pronounce your surname, Lisa?
It is Tahir, like Ta is here.
Yeah, I want you to get that correct before I actually said it and make a bit of a mess up of that. But I just wanted to clarify that. So basically, the reason why I like to do this show is like I spent about 25 years in sales and marketing. And what I've noticed is some of the most successful people just do something slightly differently. They have a really good, constructive, positive mindset, and even the language that they use is really sort of it's like wow factor. So they have just a slightly different outlook on life. So what I want to do with this show is to really sort of, especially within the times that we're in, is to help people see something from a slightly different perspective. And Lisa, you're doing some really wonderful things, and I'll give you a little bit of an introduction. If I'm going to miss a lot out, but the reason I do that is so you can fill out the blanks for me, and that would be really awesome. So you're actually from New Orleans, Louisiana, and you're a clinical social worker in 2000. Expanded your practice to Los Angeles, California, in 2014, and attained an LCSW license in California. What is an LCSW license? What is that acronym in real terms? What does that mean?
It stands for Licensed Clinical Social Worker. And I received my degree from Tulane University in New Orleans and obtained my first license in Louisiana in 2000. And then I received my second license in the state of California subsequently.
Awesome. So you have a private practice in offices in Los Angeles and New Orleans, and you have a couple of cats. I know you've got a cat in the background. For all the audio listeners listening in, they're obviously not going to see that. I have a cat over there to the right. She's fast asleep. And you basically do all of the holistic therapies like energy healing, meditation. And I just disrupted you in your meditation because we got mixed up with the time zones. It's confusing because the time clocks keep changing to winter and but it's cool because we're here.
Oh my gosh. Yes. No, I appreciate your flexibility, and I'm so sorry I got confused with the time change. So thank you.
It happens. It's one of those things that we've got over, and now we're moving forward. So Reiki healing, crystal healing, nutrition, sound frequencies, yoga, exercising, podcasting, writing, teaching, and psychoastrology. I can't even get my words out today. Psychoastrology, spiritual, emotional health, physical health, and mental well-being. And today is all about that. So we heard all of that. Now tell me about how you got to where you are now, and the sort of the anchor points that said, this is what I like to do, and this is what I love to do.
Sure. And Jason, thank you so much for having me on Positive People on Serenity Radio. This is a real treat and honor for me. To answer your question, as I grow and develop, I am aware of the connection between mind, body, and spirit. And how many of you listening or watching know someone, it might be yourself, that you might have a strong body, but feeling weak in your mindset or in your spirituality. And I've learned that it's really important that we develop our musculature in all three areas of mind, body, and spirit. And I've made it my focus to increase all three areas in my life. I started off as a therapist, really focused on psychology, on the mind and the body. I've always worked out. I've used exercise as self-care, and I neglected my spiritual life. And just as I've grown and developed, life is kind of put in front of me, as it often will for us, the people, places, and things to bring us to our next level. Have you found that even in your life,
Yeah,
Jason?
yeah, I do. Ironically, back in when I was in my teens and probably before, my mum as a yoga teacher. So I
Wow.
used to go in and sit in on my mum's sessions, workshops, or whatever they were. So she's got a very sort of posh accent. I don't know why she's very pronounced, but she's very calming. So I used to come in at the end of it when they're all in the lotus positions or whatever they're in, and the lights are off, and they had a candle in the center. So they all used to meditate at that particular time. I used to sit there and every now and again I used to stare at the candle, but it's very soothing and relaxing. So I get what you mean by that. So it's a magical feeling.
It is. And yoga for me was that gateway to spirituality. I went to yoga just purely as a physical practice to gain flexibility. And then, like you said, where some of the teachers would light a candle and talk about a life philosophy, I started to become more curious and so deeply interested in what is my philosophy to life and what kind of underlies all of our interconnectedness, because I did sense that we are so deeply connected, even to people we haven't met before. And those
Yeah.
synchronicities that happen in our lives, being on a plane and meeting someone you just connect with and like your instant friends. And so that's been my journey to just helping people develop their mindset, their emotional health, their physical health, their spiritual health. And we're also uniquely different, that we all gravitate towards those areas of our lives in different ways. And since I love learning, I've just tried to educate myself about many modalities so I can kind of direct and lead people there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's wonderful, and I love that. There's a also a direct correlation, and everything's done into threes, I think. And what you've said is mind, body, and spirit. But there's also the three. There's the stomach, there's the heart, and the head, and they're also interconnected with. The stomach is the engine, but it's also you feed it the correct. And there's also muscles in there, and I think it's the vagus nerve that connects all the way straight to the brain. So whatever you do eat affects your emotions as well. So there's that connection. But there's
Yes.
also the Dr. McLean's area of the three-layered brain, which is the neocortex, the limbic system, and the root brain. That was sort of discovered in the 1960s, and the neocortex was the thinking brain, and then
Yes.
the emotional brain, and then the root brain, which is the fight, flight, or freeze, and
Freeze.
then there's
Yeah,
other areas. So there's lots and lots of different acronyms for
there
threes, but
are.
so I love that about that. So
Yeah,
tell
that's
me a
such a
little
good
bit
point.
more about what you do.
So I work with clients remotely since the pandemic began. I've actually done remote therapy, FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, and phone for the last 10 years. So it was a natural evolution and progression when the pandemic hit and people are doing things remotely, like we're doing, for example. And so I really love helping people grow in their self-awareness and their relationship to
Mhm.
themselves, to others, and just to really gain clarity over what their purpose is and meaning. I think that's such a driving force. When we're disconnected from our purpose, I think we tend to feel kind of unstable. And so I really love helping you just understand more deeply why you're here and what you want out of life and how to manifest and create that ongoingly in really healthy ways.
So if I was a client right now, what
Mhm.
are the sort of the normal steps that you would do to help me if I'm a little bit lost in this world today, or whatever it might be, and I, I've lost my connection, or whatever it might be?
Yeah.
What do you do?
That's a great question. And I always start, because everyone's so individual. I always ask before I start gathering history, is what got you to book this appointment? What is most important to you today? Because usually people enter a healing process like therapy at kind of a pain point. There's
Yeah.
something they can't overcome or figure out on their own. And I really want to know what that is, because then I can begin to design everything around answering that question, helping them answer that question. And I can always gather history ongoingly. I don't think that's the most important place to start. I really like clients to feel some immediate relief and just solution focused type outcomes in our very first session.
So what would actually happen out after that? So the first session okay, you've you strategized and you've gone into, I think you probably might need this. What actually happens next? What's the next course of action? Because you've got such a toolbox there, haven't you?
Right. Actually, in the first session, it's really assessing, depending on the issue. If it's childhood trauma and abuse, for example, what kind of coping skills, what kind of self-soothing skills does the individual have in place? Because you don't want to go open up, some really deep, disturbing and painful issues without knowing that you can cope with that. So I want to make sure it's done safely. In my new book coming out, The Chevron Effect, Healing
I was going to speak to you about that in a short while, because you've kindly enough give me some PDFs to have a look at, and I started to read it today, and it looks awesome. But in fact, why not? Let's have a little discussion about that, because I'm also intrigued about that book and what motivated you to do that. And then we come back to the client as well, because I'm interested in that as well.
Actually, this fits in with the client. That's why I was bringing it up, because in the book, I lay it out exactly as I do therapy. And our first step in therapy is we're creating the container for change, is what I call it. And that means a very safe emotional environment where the person working with me feels like they can be their authentic self, that I am not going to judge them or criticize them. In fact, I am their accountability partner. I'm a witness to what they've experienced. And so that's why I brought up the book, is because it's laid out exactly like we work together face to face, is really helping that person create that container, a safe environment for their emotional healing, because it's so important in a world where we're focused on outcomes and productivity versus the inner journey of just being able to be ourselves and feel like it's okay.
So what's the best states to be in? The alpha, the theta, the beta states for change to actually happen, or the internal states to actually happen?
That's such a good question, Jason, that I can't answer because I'm not an expert on those brainwave states. I work more intuitively from a psychology perspective. So I would love to be able to answer you, but I'm all about being honest, and I can't. So
that's all right.
You can save that for another guest.
I thought I'd throw a curveball in there, because you just don't know, because so many people work on lots of different levels.
Right.
And you've got a whole sort of collection of different things that you could possibly use to help people and engage people a little bit further. So I'm always fascinated by how people work and how people operate, and how people like yourself engage with other people's to make a shift, a change.
Well, and to me, it's a very intuitive process. Since everyone is different and unique, we co-create that together, the client and I, based on what do they need? How do they take care of themselves? How are they not taking care of themselves? What do they feel like they can do? Because if I just spit out a bunch of toolbox techniques that doesn't resonate, it's like I'm talking at someone instead of engaging them and discovering from within themselves in empowerment, empowerment, coming out of you, how to create the outcomes you want. So it's very collaborative, based on, again, where that person is in the moment that we're speaking. So I'm not scripted, much like you. Like, I'm really in the moment with my clients, and very intuitive with like what I'm sensing and picking up on. And I'm wondering if this fits for you or not. And in that way, they're opening up to their deeper truths about themselves.
Wow, that's really cool. I like that.
Thank you.
If what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of a break, just for a few seconds, and what's going to happen, they're going to play some wonderful music, and we'll come back with positive people with positive minds. And I've got an awesome client today that I'm speaking with. I said client because I coach all the time, so I didn't mean I meant yes.
No, it's
actually.
okay.
So,
I've done that too.
I'm your client today.
That's great.
So just a few moments, we'll just come back. And thank you very much. We're back on serenityradio.co.uk. We're out there in the world. We're helping people with positive minds. I'm your host, Jason, and we've got Lisa here, and she's an expert. She's in, you're actually in Los Angeles at the moment. Is that right? Or California
I'm in
somewhere?
New Orleans. I'm actually in New Orleans right now. Yes.
Ah, right, New Orleans. One of my good friends is in New Orleans somewhere.
Oh,
I've
no
never
way.
been.
I
Love
feel
to
like
go
you
to
would
New
like it.
Orleans.
I feel like you'd really like it, Jason.
I'd
Your
love
energy,
it.
I think you'd have so much fun here.
I think I would.
Yeah.
Probably not so much in lockdown at the moment, and probably not in the presidential debate that's happening at the moment. But that I think that's another story. I think we should push that to one side
Yes.
and not think about it and make it shrink and disappear because life's too short for that.
Well, if you visit New Orleans, let me know so we
I
can
would
have a
love
drink.
to come out there.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely incredible. So I'm absolutely privileged to have and speak with people like you because I learn and I grow all the way through it. Look, we're here to plug your book as well. So let's have a little plug of your book. So let's talk about the Chevron Effect, healing our core wounds for astrology, empathy, and self-forgiveness. I like it because I'm actually looking over there, but I'm looking at your book, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, that's all the signs, isn't it? The Pisces and Cancer.
Right.
And all that. So tell me a little bit more about that because I'm interested.
Thank you, Jason. I think the most important thing for our listeners and viewers to know is that I wrote this book because I became personally frustrated as I've been a client in therapy as well as a therapist. And there were so many years where it felt like there was just the rehashing of traumatic and painful memories. And I came to a place where I myself felt disempowered. Like I couldn't even, I've had moments of happiness and like this stuff is resolved, but it would always come back in such a powerful way when I was triggered. And I asked the universe, what is beyond this? Because like I'm frustrated with my own profession that I love. How am I going to help my clients if I'm constantly put back in a state of feeling sad and unworthy and bamboozled by my own thoughts? And I was given a message in meditation to research Chiron. And this is an astrological placement in our birth chart. Chiron is actually a planet, a minor planet, and a comet designated in astronomy. And it talks about our deepest core wounding. And there's 12 core woundings that I discovered. And mine, for example, was in my sense of value and worth based on my time of birth and place of birth. And I felt like that really hit the nail on the head, Jason. So I started to focus my efforts on healing my own sense of value and worth. And it's really transformed my whole life. And I started writing. I've spent the last 4 years because I want people to really hone in on their specific area of vulnerability that they might hide from others. We might feel ashamed about this aspect of our lives. We might feel low self-esteem around it. And it really drags us down. And I don't want anyone to feel that way. I spent enough years feeling that way. So that's why I wrote the book. And I feel like it's something of value. And in fact, His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama.
I was going to mention him, actually. I'm looking at his picture right here, and it's awesome to get the Dalai Lama on there. How did you manage to wangle that one then?
I spent, in fact, Jason, 2 years in meditation, aligning my own vibration with His Holiness's vibration of compassion, because I knew to receive such an endorsement, I had to do some inner work and clean up the way I send text messages, emails, the way I speak to telemarketers. His Holiness to me is the embodiment of forgiveness and compassion. And to really be living that way in my life, I had to change so many, tweak some things in the way I show up in the world for myself and others. And I heard His Holiness in meditation after 2 years. It took me a while. Maybe somebody else could do it faster or sooner, depending on where you vibe. But for me, I had to clean up some areas of my personality and behaviors. And when I heard him say, "Send me your book, I want to read it," I emailed it over. And in less than a month, His Holiness sent me the most beautiful letter, just confirming that my techniques, healing through meditation and compassion, are the way and the path. And he believes my book is going to benefit many, many readers and is of value.
Wow. Oh, that you must have been so humbled to get
Oh my
that
god, I
message.
was crying. Yes, Jay, like, it felt like it's really we can really have what we want when we align
Yeah.
vibrationally our thoughts and feelings, and I know you believe that because your show is all about this.
Yeah, yeah, I know, absolutely. I tend to find, and you probably know this true, like if you go into therapy, they talk about the pain and they keep talking to you about the pain. But the thing is with that, and the challenge is with that, you're living it every time that you go back into therapy and you have these wounds or whatever it might be, is you talk about it, which is good to talk about it, but then you relive it in your head. And because of
Right.
the mirror neurons and whatever you imagine,
Yeah.
and you sometimes you live in the past, you go through the same thing. You still go through the same feelings associated with it. But
Yes.
it's very difficult to get yourself out of it. And then you leave there and you feel terrible rather than leaving there feeling wonderful and feeling like you've left something in the seat or you left something behind
Yeah.
you that you can move on because you actually feel a little bit more refreshed about yourself. And now you can be in the present as opposed to in the past, because you can't affect the past. You can jump into it, but you can actually resonate with it and learn from it and go, okay, let's move forward. But it takes a lot of time and effort to do that. And it's you've probably done some wonderful work with people that you can help them move forward. And how would you do that? I'm always fascinated by that,
Yeah.
how people do
Jason,
things.
it's a brilliant question, and what I've discovered is the missing piece is self-forgiveness, and that's why I wrote this book secondarily, is to really we have layer upon layer of judgment towards
Yeah,
ourselves. The way we speak to ourselves and our own minds is often negative and self-defeating, and we hold ourselves to standards that are hard to maintain consistently. So for
yeah,
me, the next piece, once the trauma is exposed and emoted, is really, let's forgive ourselves. I help my clients really, and I notice it's often like, like, I don't know if I can forgive myself. And yes, you can. You deserve to be empathetic towards yourself. It's how we truly heal those wounds, is forgiving ourselves for having that desire, that need, for being in that place, in that space with that person, whatever it is. Like you said in the beginning of the show, being willing to see things differently. And that's what self forgiveness really is, stepping
mhm.
into a place of empathy towards yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's being honest with yourself, because we get that delusion that sometimes you're perceived to be in your head something else, and you get different views of yourself. Like, we all talk to ourselves, and the language that we use internally is, you wouldn't speak to your best friends the way that you speak to yourself on a daily basis. And
Right.
we all know that. And we
Yeah.
all say, I can't do that. That's not going to happen. But it's switching that language round, saying, it will happen. It's going to happen. I love the way that's going to be moving forward. And you
Yeah.
get more present with that and say, I can do that. I can achieve that. It's like I do a bit of mountain running. It's me looking up there going, I'm not
Wow.
going to look up there. I'm going to look. I'm going to look down at where I am and where my feet are, so I can see
Yeah.
where I'm going to be going. But it's also that sort of analogy is that we are moving forward. We are moving forward up the mountain, but we have to see and be present in our state, but say the right language to ourselves that we can and we will achieve what we set out to achieve. But it takes a lot of practice, as you know.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm interested in that.
what you're saying is so right on. And in my book, I offer affirmations for every core wounding of Chiron. There are 12. So, depending on what your core wounding is, I've crafted and infused with Reiki healing energy affirmations just for you that you can write down and carry around on sticky notes, like I have for the last 20 years, to really, it starts by memorizing the statement you want to believe. And then it's like feeling into that. What would it feel like? Like, for instance, I have an affirmation: there is no problem so big or so small that it cannot be solved with love. And I've looked at that every day for years. But then you start feeling into it. Like, what does
Yeah.
solving problems with love really feel like? And then your mind starts to go there in your imagination and in your visualizations. And then it starts to become a part of your life. So that's an intention I have for
Yeah.
readers and clients to start living into those new aspects of their lives.
So tell me, if you are in a meditative state and you're doing affirmations, tell me what you would say. other than that, what you just said, but tell me what other things that you might say. As we can imagine right now that we're in a sort of a meditative state, what would you say and suggest to people right now, and pushing those affirmations on and on and on again?
Well, when I lead people in meditation, I often like to start with inviting the person to close their outer eyes and open the eyes of their inner being, where there's all knowledge and awareness and solutions, and just to breathe into that space and just really guide a person into being at peace with where they are right now, to put down the striving and the mental gymnastics, and really inviting them to be in that still spot, and then telling themselves how important they are and how loved they are and how valuable they are and just how unique they are. And I think it's through a process like that, that we start to connect more and more to that inside aspect of ourselves. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah, no, I put you on the spot there because it's good to really listen to yourself doing it, because obviously you've been doing this for a long while, and it's really nice for the listeners to really understand these affirmations. So for me, I just transported myself into that space where you said, because you gave me some really good, wonderful suggestions there for me to actually dive straight in. It does take a little bit of practice, as we know, and I understand that from I've studied hypnosis and hypnotherapy and all of that. So I understand by getting someone into a really good place and really good affirmation place is absolutely wonderful. So how would you see empathy?
Empathy is defined as our ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and to kind of drop our perspective, our view of things. And again, like you said, seeing something differently. And it takes some, I think, effort when we're hurt or upset, wounded by someone. It's hard to have empathy. But if you can really take the time to imagine what it's like for them, their wounds, when people hurt us, it's because they're deeply wounded. I don't believe anyone wants to do horrible things to another person. I think they don't have, it's like a stunted ability to be compassionate and empathic. And when we can try to see it from maybe their perspective, we can start to, I think, step into the forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and eventually forgiving someone else, which is kind of the byproduct. How does that answer feel for you?
Oh, that was absolutely incredible. Yeah, you've answered that extremely well. And I'm sure the listeners will totally understand that. We're just going to take a quick break. You're listening to Jason Cooper here. We're on Positive People with Positive Minds, and we're on serenityradio.co.uk. That's for Michelle listening in the studio. Sometimes I don't say it correctly, but I've actually said it correctly again for the third show in a row. But we'll just have some music here and we'll come back in a few moments. So we're back again with a very special guest, and I'm probably going to say her name completely wrong. So I'm going to say Lisa, and you're from NOLA Therapy, and you're out in the USA, and I'm absolutely delighted to have you here. And the time zones, what time zone are you in? I'm at almost 5 o'clock. So where are you? What time do you have now?
I am in Central Standard Time, and it is almost 11 a.m. here. So big difference, but here we are connected across the world.
I'm actually in the future, so I'll tell you what the future's like.
Tell me.
The clouds are coming down here, and it's very cold here in Ireland, but that's good. But it doesn't matter. I'm in the future. I'll tell you what the future's like. You can come to it in 5 hours time and see what it's like for you.
That's so cool. That's so cool to think you're in the future and I'm like starting the day.
Yeah, you're just starting. I'm 5 o'clock ish, and I'm sort of getting close to finishing the day, which is awesome. It's great. I love speaking to international guests. Makes my day, and I love it. So, like, we're all in this big worldwide pandemic thing that we're in at the moment. We're actually in lockdown as well. UK is in lockdown, France is in lockdown, Germany is in lockdown, and Italy is probably going into lockdown. The whole of Europe. So really, I always think it's controlling what you can do as opposed to what you can't do, especially within this. How are things over there, and how are you affecting change with some of your clients that you work with? Because a lot of people are going through a lot of stress at the moment,
Yeah.
and we're in the right space to help people.
We are. And Jason, I think first to address, people that are in more restricted and locked down areas and those interpersonal challenges, like it's like you've been thrown into a stretch zone, that zone beyond our personal comfort zone that usually in our lives we choose when we're going to stretch beyond our our known limits, but this pandemic has just thrust us all there and we're forced to cope and deal, and there's a natural period of destabilization where the world that we're used to looks very different and it feels unpredictable. So I know people collectively have been going through that in their own time frame. And it's really most important to know that you're going to be okay
Absolutely.
and you can figure this out, and to really just do what you can in a given day. You won't be able at first to do all that you did before because your energies, sent out to like, how do I cope? How do I deal? What the fuck is going on, even?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I
yeah,
think it's okay to permit yourself to have those moments of where you need to cry or be angry and just express that. And then come back to like, I can figure this out. The affirmations again, like, I can figure this out. And what's next? I often ask the universe, like, show me what the path is, and to really stay connected to our loved ones through. I know in the pandemic, when I was on lockdown in Los Angeles, I started doing Zoom sessions every week with my 4 best friends who were in New Orleans. And that was so helpful to every week. We did like a several hour, we had cocktails and laughed. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I encourage you to reach out and connect however you can. It's so important to not let yourself get so isolated in this environment of of being isolated, I guess, because
Yeah.
I don't think you have to feel isolated in a quarantine situation. So that's an exercise, just it looks like you wanted to say something, so I'm curious
No,
to
I,
know.
I was thinking something and I kind of completely
Yeah.
forgot what I was going to say. I know exactly. I totally agree, but we all go in sort of these emotional waves. Like I know. I went over to see my parents. I hadn't seen since January,
Wow.
and I was a little bit anxious. Flew over to England because I'm English, live in Ireland.
Yeah.
Just so the listeners understand. But I was getting a little bit anxious that I was a little bit down because I couldn't see them. And
Of
it's the
course.
same with probably in the US, it's no different because your family might be thousands of miles away, hundreds of miles away because
Right.
the States is so vast. Um, it's a bit of a challenge for people like me to see the loved ones, but also the people that are far away. And maybe I'm quite lucky. I've got my wife here and my kids here and all of that, and I've got
Yeah.
my mother and father-in-law. I have friends around, which is cool. But what
Yeah.
about all those people that are on their own right now?
I think again, connecting in any way that you can through the phone, through FaceTime, through text messages, just to stay connected with your loved ones, however you can, is really important. So I would
Hmm.
just encourage listeners and viewers to make those efforts with each other because you're going to feel better as a
Yeah.
result.
Yeah, there is a sort of an inner healing that you have to do. So, how would you deal with the self-sabotage area? Because I noticed that in your book about how people can sabotage themselves. I was the king of sabotage. I always used to sabotage myself. Have a dream that I wanted to do, and then I go, no, I can't do that. And the old sabotage head came on, and I just completely destroyed it. So, how would you do that with a client, and how would you suggest that to the listeners that are listening right now?
Sure. I've learned that underneath sabotage is fear of maybe we don't deserve this desire that we have. Maybe you don't really believe that we can accomplish it, that we can have it. We have a desire without the belief. And that's such a painful point that can cause us to sabotage, to have negative thoughts. And it's really just kind of taking the time with yourself to get clear on what you do want to experience. And I have written those things down. I encourage my clients. I write it down with them. What do you really want in your life, in this relationship, in the various areas of your life? And then to start creating beliefs to support your achievement of them. So it's really breaking down. And what is your fear? I sense there's a fear here in the patterns that cause you to sabotage, because often procrastination is an example of when people, and sometimes procrastination, some of us we wait till the last minute and it's done beautifully. We just somehow need that energy to push us. But for a lot of other people, it's fear of success or having that. And maybe if I have it, I can't maintain it. And so I really help people just get clear and honest with themselves and just pushing against releasing that negative thought and belief and replacing it with something supportive, like I can do this. I can take the baby steps. So it's really an internal process as I see it, Jason. How do you see that?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And it's the self-belief. I just wrote down imposter syndrome, which is the king of all self-sabotage, because you fear what other people might be saying, but you also fear that what if it doesn't work? What if people might be saying this, that, and the other to me, or all this social media rubbish out there at the moment. I'm not good enough, and that's what people say, or you think that they say, and you guess what you think that the other person. It hasn't happened. How do you know? That's the question that I would always ask. Because, well, you talk about this, that, and the other, but how do you know? Well, this, that, and the other. What? How do you know? How do you know that's true? Because you're not even there yet. Right. So you imagine the future.
Yeah, the outcome is unmanifested. I've been working with that lately, and even my mind, being a daily meditator, I'll still in my mind go to an outcome like I don't want that, and I'm constantly redirecting. Like, what do you want to happen, Lisa? What's the best outcome? And I think sometimes we just don't know. So I just turn it over to I just like the most amazing outcome, what I see or better, and just hand it over and like surprise and delight me, universe. Like I just want this to be good. I just know I want it to be good for everyone involved. So just help that happen. And I think sometimes just being honest about our uncertainty is healthy.
Yeah, I agree. Something else that has gone on my mind is this horrible thing called a mobile phone at the moment, which is there. I think it's like the crack cocaine of the drug use. I think it's probably one of the worst things out there, because it sabotages your hours of the day, but it also feeds you lots of uncertainty, and also feeds you this social media stuff that's out there in the world. Right. How would you suggest for the listeners, give them some golden nuggets of stuff, what you could potentially do to help yourself?
Yes, that's a great question. And intention is very important. So if you are going to go on your phone and mindlessly read and search, have intention. Even set a timer if it's a problem that it's hard for you to stop. Set, say, a 35-minute, a 45-minute timer on your phone, and then let yourself enjoy, really embellish then the searching, the wasting of time in air quotes. It's okay. Our minds sometimes need to not be focused in the here and now, in healthy ways. So let yourself do that browsing or whatever it is. And then when the alarm goes off, redirect yourself, get up, walk outside, change your environment, and even structure your day with those times with intention, so that you're not beating yourself up and then harboring unforgiveness. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, that's really good, because the listeners now, that if they're isolating or they can't go out. I know there's restrictions in different countries now, so it's really good and it's really impactful to say, well, this is what you probably can do. I just reinforce what they should know, because there are adverts going on now. This is what you should do. Something I was going to suggest actually is that what I heard a really good ad was it's an English ad that was saying, do not be hard on the customer service people out there at the moment, because they get it in all times, every time. Just be thankful for them having a job, and be thankful they're there to help you get through that. Do not shout at them. Do not do this stuff. It just came to mind when you said about forgiveness and everything else. I think there's an empowerment when something goes wrong in your life. your technology goes down, and
Yeah.
we were speaking about mobile phones and this, that, and the other. But when things go down and you are embracing someone else online or by phone, send them love.
Yes, I love that. And that was an area of my life that I really have been looking at and edging up in, because there's like a level of depersonalization when we're on the phone with someone we don't know, that
Yeah.
it's easier to be short and rude. And it's like I really had to stop that, because we're frustrated. Technology isn't working, something isn't working. So we're aggravated with that situation, not the human being trying to help us. And I think it takes some maturity to separate the two and then act with respect and consideration to the person trying to help us. It's really, I think, a growth area for most of us. It has been for me.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important, because your frustration is not there for, it's not them. And I say that because I spent the last 3 days setting up an email account, and it wasn't working. And it wasn't working for Google, and Google changed something, and I was going, ah! But I just spoke to the person and just said, look, I just want this sorted. I know you're there to help me, and it makes so much of a difference to the communication, and they respect it as well, and they will do it. And he actually did a lot more than he said. So I'm going to go online, I'm going to go on your computer, I'm going to do this, that, and the other.
That's so cool.
Proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
It works when you're nice and calm. And I think that's a message that we should all give out today to anyone that's listening. And this will be out in December, and especially around Christmas time.
Yeah.
So tell me what, like when this is coming out in around the run up to Christmas. So what do you normally do at those times, and how do you help give more?
Can you ask that question in a different way, Jason, so I'm clear?
Yeah. So this will be coming out onto the run up to Christmas.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of uncertainty out there. There'll be a lot of sort of money worries and this, that, and the other. What are the best things that you could possibly say to yourself and help people?
Well, I think, Jason, this is an interesting holiday season we're entering, because we're in a pandemic that I know I've never been through. And so I'm not sure. Besides, I think the issues are centered around how are we going to gather, how many people, and how are we going to do this safely. And so I encourage people to put their heads together and have a holiday that, if it wasn't a pandemic, I go to, spend what you can, maybe make gifts, do something authentic. But I think this is uniquely different, since I don't know that we're going to be having the 20 people to our house as in the past. Maybe some people will. So I think to just try to get clear on what's going to be meaningful and speak it, share if you're not comfortable. I know I've gotten invited to something and I don't really feel comfortable going to that large of a place with that many people. And I intend to just say that instead of ignore it and not respond. Like, hey, I'd love to see you, but can we do something smaller outside? Because that's kind of where I feel more comfortable. So I think to just really speak that truth in planning your holiday season and take care of yourself.
I think that's hugely important. And I'm sure that people listening to this right now will take your advice and your golden nuggets of information, because we are actually, we don't have a crystal ball right now. We don't know. But everyone is dealing with these and other situations in their own way. So, let's just everyone stay safe as much as they can do and will do. But we don't know what's going to happen. But I always think when you plan for something, have an area of uncertainty in there. But for this time, have a big chunk of uncertainty. Just ride the wave.
Yes.
I think. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on board. Tell us how people can find you. Find out more about you. Not find out where you are now, but find out more.
No, I understand. The best place is my website. It's nolatherapy.com, NOLATHERAPY.com. Easy way to remember it. It stands for New Orleans, Los Angeles Therapy.com. And there people can order my book on all the platforms, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the publisher, my podcast, All Things Therapy. They can check out my online class having to do with empowerment and 20 psychospiritual techniques that I've used in my life. They can join my email list. It's all at NOLA Therapy.
Awesome. And you have some social media links as well.
Yeah, it's all NOLA therapy. I thank
Oh,
you for
no,
that.
therapy. Oh, well, that was all nice
Instagram,
and easy
Facebook.
then.
Yeah, NOLA therapy. I tried to make that consistent, and I'd love
Yeah,
to
you
connect
have.
with people on social media. I've been working on authentic social media posts. I think it's a work for all of us, you know, a journey we're on. So I'd love for your listeners to subscribe and follow and interact with me.
Awesome. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure. And
Thank
I've
you.
thoroughly enjoyed it today. It's been very uplifting. And that's what people want to hear. Something really uplifting, giving something back. And as I always say on Positive People, it's all about giving forward and helping people when they need it. And like offers one, if people can take one thing out of today, I hope they do, and they can carry them with them into themselves and like whatever challenges or not, even if they want to meditate tomorrow or whatever it might be. So I'm absolutely delighted. You've been listening to serenityradio.co.uk, and thank you so much for my very special guest.
Thank you, Jason.